Are we Facebooking too? I'm Ezra Levant. It's June 4th, and this is Battleground. Welcome back to the show. It's called Battleground every day at 12 noon Eastern Time. I talk for an hour, take your comments in the form of a super chat. Super chat is chat that's highlighted in colorful colors. I see one from Andrew Sr. already. I'll read that in a moment. It's a way to make your comments stand out from the other hundreds of comments that come in. It's a fun way of us chatting, and the bonus for us is it's a source of revenue. So thank you to those of you who chip in to help pay our bills. I just checked, you probably heard me talking on the hot microphone, that we're also streaming this on Facebook Live, which is great, a way for people to see us there, but the Super Chat functionality is only on our YouTube page. Well, last week was a terrible week for freedom. It was a week that Tommy Robinson spent his first week in prison for allegedly being in contempt of court. That contempt, of course, emanating from a judge's observing Tommy standing outside the courthouse, doing a Facebook live stream, really what I'm doing right here. A judge didn't like it much, sent 7 police officers to arrest Tommy, pull him away, and literally within hours, Tommy was sent to prison for 13 months. There's an irony there. I was watching Tommy's Facebook live stream that caused that to happen to him, and he accosted 2 of the criminal accused in a rape gang trial, and he said, "I see you have your prison bag with you." A prison bag, of course, is a bag of your personal belongings, toothbrush, whatever, that you take if you think you might be going to jail. You take it to the last day of trial. What a horrific paradox, or irony, that Tommy was asking them about a prison bag when it was he, in fact, who would be going to prison that day. I think it's a miscarriage of justice, which leads me to the first super chat that was written by Andrew Sr. I'll read it. It's highlighted in green. It says, "Hey, Ezra, apparently Tommy pleaded guilty. Is there anything a legal team can do with regard to an appeal? Keep up the great work. Andy, Leeds, UK." Well, thank you, Andy. Yes, it is possible to set aside or to withdraw a guilty plea. It doesn't happen often because usually if someone pleads guilty, they contemplated it, they were given lots of advice, and they're pleading guilty for a reason. Either they really did it, or even if they have a bit of a will to fight, they understand by pleading guilty and cooperating with justice that there will be some leniency. So those are typically the 2 reasons to plead guilty. You done it, or even if you don't really feel like you've done it, it's just a way to get out of the legal pickle you're in. I put it to you, both of those reasons are not here for Tommy Robinson. Let's take a look. Number 1, did Tommy do anything wrong? Is he really morally culpable? Does he have a guilty mind? Mens rea, to use the Latin term, a guilty conscience? Of course not. I'm sure those of you who are watching me now, 10 days after Tommy was arrested, have watched his underlying Facebook live stream. He did nothing contemptuous of court at all. In fact, he was quite deferential to the court. He was very careful that he was not standing on court property. He was very careful to say accused or alleged rapists. He was very careful in all ways. The only facts he read into the camera were those publicly available on the state broadcaster, the BBC, when he read the names. So Tommy was not guilty. He did not have a moral guilt that he was perhaps expiating and coming to terms with, reconciling himself to that by pleading guilty. No. I believe he was railroaded into a guilty plea because he did not have access to his regular counsel. He was dealing with a public defender, or duty counsel as they're sometimes called, who did not know Tommy and certainly did not know the obscure and complex law of contempt of court. So it was not for that. It was not because Tommy, in my view, I wasn't there, but from several thousand miles away here in Canada, it seems like that was not the reason for his guilty plea. The second reason, I put it to you, is for leniency. A plea bargain, as it's sometimes called. If you plead guilty, if you make this go quickly and easily, we'll be lighter on you. That obviously didn't happen. 13 months in prison is anything but light. I believe that Tommy Robinson did not have meaningful counsel. If he did, I think meaningful counsel would have at the very least asked for a delay in the hearing, would have at the very least insisted that the judge reviewed the facts at hand. And if a guilty plea were in fact warranted, that some leniency would have been got in return. None of those things happened. And therefore, I do believe, and this is me speaking as a Canadian, I am not a British barrister or solicitor. I do not know the nuances of British contempt of court law, which seem obscure and whimsical to me, frankly. But it would seem to me that Tommy Robinson ought to apply to withdraw his guilty plea and have a proper hearing with proper counsel, and at the very least, the judge will have cooled off a bit, I put it to you. If there were an emergency application for an appeal, and again, I don't know the procedural aspects of an appeal of a contempt of court ruling in the UK. I just don't, I might have an answer to that in Canada. I just don't know how that's done in the UK. I also don't think that Tommy's public defender, Matthew Harding, knew either, by the way. I'm not disparaging him. I'm saying contempt of court is a very rare area of law. Apply to set it aside, apply to withdraw the guilty plea, apply to have a full hearing of the underlying evidence. And here, at the very least, the judge's temper will have cooled. The judge will have been separate from the prickly events by a week or two. And Tommy's lawyer can say, well, he just spent 2-3 weeks in prison, Your Honor, so he's already been punished. I think a withdrawal of the guilty plea, a request for bail pending a proper hearing, I think at the very least it would give Tommy a shot. And the judge would probably be cooler, and the judge could say, well, I already got my pound of flesh. He already served X amount of time. So why the hell wouldn't you do that? But I'm not the decider here. I'm not the decision maker. Tommy Robinson worked for us for a year. It was a very interesting year. I won't say it was easy. Tommy is not built to have a boss, as I think you know. That said, I remain an ally and an admirer of his. And in fact, as soon as I saw the video, I reached out to his staff and I said, how can we help? The answer is we have to wait for the family to ask us to help. I see some more super chats. By the way, I'm not just going to kibitz with you today. I'm going to read these super chats, but I do have 3 video clips that I'm going to show you today. Lisa Leto chipped in $10. Thank you very much, Lisa. I'm going to keep an eye peeled for a comment from you. A Swede speaks, 50 Norwegian kroner. Thank you. Save UK, Canada, and Sweden. Well, you could throw in a lot more countries than that need the help. I think that Germany needs a lot of help. I think France needs a lot of help. Lisa Leto, I see your comment here. What about Britain First? They are both in jail and blocked from the internet. I addressed this briefly last week, very briefly. I have met Paul Golding and Jada Franson briefly for about an hour, talked to them a little bit. I didn't get deeply into their past and some controversies, so I don't know enough about them or Britain First to be able to give my opinion on them substantively. I know that they had a very powerful Facebook presence. They seem to me to be more of a social media action group, some reporting, some activism, than a political party. I know they were registered as a political party, but it felt like they were more of a website operation. I think they had 2, maybe even 3 million Facebook fans. It was huge. A lot of whom were in America, by the way. They had very intricate web presence. You'll recall Donald Trump retweeted 3 of Jada Franson's tweets. Caused an uproar in the UK. I'm not as familiar with the court case that sent them to prison. There were some similarities to Tommy's in that they were talking about Muslim rape gangs in the UK. I think, and again, I'm going from secondhand reports because I do not have firsthand information. I think that they made an error in misidentifying an accused. And I think they said someone who didn't do it did it. I'm going from news reports here. And I think that is the grounds upon which they were convicted. I don't think that what they did ought to be a crime. I don't think it would be a crime in the United States under the First Amendment. I don't know if it would be a crime in Canada, which is slipping into a UK-style censorship. I do know for a fact that Paul Golding was assaulted in prison, and I am absolutely sure in my bones that the UK establishment was delighted that that accident happened. I think they jail too many political dissidents in the UK, and they don't jail enough jihadis. For those of you who tune into my premium show at 8 p.m. Eastern, I'm going to talk about 23,000 jihadis in the UK that their security services acknowledge. And I'm going to talk about the dozens who are about to be released, including Anjem Chowdhury. So if you watch the show at 8 p.m. tonight, you'll see that. I think a couple more super chats came in. I'm going to quickly read them, and then I'm going to get into the news of the day. Let me just read these. Gamer Girl 5317 says it's 2 a.m. the 5th of June in Australia, actually. Well, what are you doing up? What are you doing up at 2 a.m.? But thank you very much for contributing. I appreciate that. And KS Biddy says, free Tommy, he's my hero, from Marcus in Bristol, UK. It's quite something. I've told you this story before, and forgive me if you've heard it. I met Tommy when I would meet him in the UK. Sometimes he would pick me up in his car at Heathrow. And so I'd say, well, I'll meet you where the cabs, like it's very hard to be, Heathrow's terrible. Anyway, so he would pull up near the cabs, and I would wave, and he'd step out and say, oi, Ezra, I'm over here. I'd come over. And cabbies, taxi drivers would identify Tommy, and they'd get out of their cabs and say, hey, Tommy! Like it was like they saw a hero. Like even if they saw a rock star or a movie star, they wouldn't literally get out of their cabs and holler and cheer. That's the reaction Tommy got. So he's the hero to a lot of people. I should say for every person like that, we saw a hater. Some of them were just snobby toffs, like one fellow on Westminster Bridge who called Tommy over for a selfie. I thought, isn't that beautiful? Look at this fancy pants banker with the French cuffs and the $100 haircut and the tailored suit. Oh, he's really crossing the class divide. And Tommy leaned in for the selfie, and I was right there. And I actually took a picture of Tommy taking his picture with this fancy pants. I thought, look at this, Tommy's breaching the divide, bridging the gap. No, and then he immediately said the favorite British swear, which is the C word. So the second he took a smiley picture with Tommy, the toff looked at him and said, you C-U-N-T. And like it was a gag, a trick that he could show all his city stockbroker friends, I was with Tommy and here's the proof of it. Tommy, there's a saying, the Jews have a saying in, there's a book called Pirkei Avot, which is sayings of our fathers. It's a great little passage. It's, who is wealthy, he who is content with his own portion. That's a interesting Zen idea. And one of them is, who is strong, he who can control himself. Don't you think that's thoughtful? So there Tommy was. He was just tricked into taking a selfie with this fancy pants, would-be aristocrat stockbroker who managed to beckon Tommy over, lied to him, oh, I'm such a fan, let me take a selfie. The second he had the selfie as a trophy to show his friends, he called them the C word, and he didn't spit on him because he's too fancy for that. But what did Tommy do? He just laughed and kept on going. Tommy, for all his wild nature, was in control of himself because he knew he had to be. That toff could have punched Tommy in the face and got away with it. If Tommy would punch back, you know he would go to prison. And it's always thus, the double standard. I showed you the footage the other day of Tommy being knocked down in the streets in Luton by Muslim gangs who would accost him. Nothing would ever happen to those gangs, but if Tommy had so much as laid a finger in return, that's why Tommy had to be strong to restrain himself. And I see another super chat by Jonathan Bryant. Would like to see publication ban on rape trial that Tommy was covering. Yes, you're right on that. I understand that's a complicated rape trial with so many different parts that it's been broken into parts, and I think that chaining of these different trials together means the publication ban extends. But as I showed you, I think it was on Friday, that doesn't mean plenty of other citizen journalists and mainstream media haven't been covering it, even with more graphic descriptions than Tommy. I may have missed a couple of super chats. If so, my team will bring them to my attention. I want to tell you that this weekend in Toronto, Canada, we had a conference. We call it The Rebel Live. We had, 500 people or so get together for a day, and we talked about Tommy. And to my pleasant surprise, someone flew in from the United Kingdom just to talk with us about Tommy, to attend the conference. His name is Peter McIlvenna, if I'm recalling correctly, and he works in the office of Lord Pearson, who is a UKIP lord. I didn't know there were any. For some reason, I would have assumed it was just Labour and Conservative, but it shows you what I know. So Lord Pearson himself did not attend, but one of his aides did, and he gave a very, very thoughtful presentation. I invited him up to talk. He said, can I talk? I said, well, yeah, if you're really with Lord Pearson's office. He showed me his card, he was, and he gave a very thoughtful speech. You can watch that speech on my show tonight at 8 p.m., but I want to show you, it was great that he made it. Obviously, Lord Pearson himself didn't come, but it reminded me of Lord Pearson, because Tommy Robinson had a great interview with Lord Pearson a couple of weeks before the incident of last week. And Lord Pearson, according to Peter McElvenna, took Tommy around the House of Lords and made a big point of showily introducing him to everyone. Hi, this is my friend Tommy. Hi, this is my friend Tommy. And they booked a lunch at I suppose there's a restaurant or a dining room in the House of Lords, and Lord Pearson requested the dining table right in the middle so everyone could see that Lord Pearson had brought Tommy into the heart of the House of Lords, the fanciest place in all the UK other than, I suppose, a royal palace. Apparently that central table was booked, but that didn't stop Lord Pearson from going around with them. I like that style, don't you? I want to show you the first time I encountered Lord Pearson. It was very recently. It was a clip of him in the House of Lords, a short clip. There's something about the British, those who are thoughtful can be very thoughtful in a way that I think only someone, who's been in the land of learning, in the land of Shakespeare, in the land of Cambridge and Oxford, and you can tell that Lord Pearson is a man of thinking and ideas and philosophy, and it's amazing to have a man of his intellectual depth on our team. Look at the beautiful use of words. It reminded me a little bit of Churchill, I gotta say. Without further ado, here's Lord Pearson in the House of Lords talking about Muslim rape gangs, the same ones that Tommy was covering.
If we accept the views of our lead police officer for child protection, of Rotherham's MP, and of the recent Jay and Quilliam reports, we seem to be looking at millions of rapes of white and Sikh girls by Muslim men, only 222 of whom have been convicted since 2005. So, my lords, will the government ask our Muslim leaders whether the perpetrators can claim that their behaviour is sanctioned in the Quran, and to issue a fatwa against it? And second, my lords, will the government encourage a national debate about the various interpretations of Islam? Can we talk about Islam without being accused of hate crime?
So thoughtful, not a word wasted. I tell you, quite a few politicians could learn from that. You heard some of the groaning, surely coming from all benches. I thought he made a very good point. He said, can we inquire with our British imams if this is forbidden by Islam, these rape gangs? And if it is, will they issue a fatwa against it? I mean, to answer those questions in the negative, to say that no, it's not banned and no, they won't issue a fatwa, is to condemn, isn't it? I mean, if you are not willing to say no, our interpretation is that this is contrary to Islam, and we hereby issue a religious edict, a religious judicial order called the fatwa against it. Imagine opposing that. Imagine opposing the encouragement of moderate Muslim imams to condemn rape gangs. Imagine opposing a fatwa against rape gangs. You heard the heckle say. That was his first request. Can we ask the Muslim imams in the UK to condemn this? And then the second request is, can we have a national debate? He's in the House of Lords. There's also the House of Commons for our American friends. That would be like the Senate and the Congress. Look at the word parliament. It comes from the word to speak, parler, to parley. That's how we say it in English, or parler en français. It's a house of debate. In the UK and in Canada and other parliaments modeled after the mother of parliaments in the UK, we think debating is so important that we give it what's called parliamentary privilege. You can say things on the floor of the House of Commons or the House of Lords that you cannot say elsewhere. You have what's called absolute immunity or parliamentary immunity. You cannot be sued for defamation, for example. That is one of the privileges that come with being in Parliament. And yet, here we have a member of the House of Lords saying, can we please even debate this subject? And he listed other people who had rung the alarm, including a Muslim group he mentioned called Quilliam. Obviously, the answer to his questions is no. My McDowell says, cheers, mate. cheers. I always enjoyed the little Britishisms. I learned, not only did I learn new swears by hanging out with Tommy, I learned new fun, like mate. Everyone's a mate. We don't say, not a lot of chap. Hey, oh, good old chap. I mean, I'm sure some people still say that, but with Tommy and his crew, on, hey, mate. I liked it. Let's check the time. It's 12:19. A third of the show is gone. Just a reminder what we're doing every weekday at 12 noon Eastern, 2 a.m. Australia time, I just heard. 5 p.m. Eastern in the UK, 9 a.m. in the Pacific. I go live, play some video clips, take your comments. It's not our produced show. The fun thing about it is it's live and you can put comments. Derry, make Tommy King of England. Well, I don't think it works that way. Goat zipper. There's a surgical procedure which removes the conscience which is required before standing for elected office. Yeah, there's some truth to it. Ray Winston Smith. Ezra is making me vomit a bit. Sorry about that. You know, you can always feel free to click away. Free Tommy so he can receive Ezra's hush money for getting fired. Tommy and I were on good terms before he went into prison. In fact, just about a week beforehand, Tommy wrote to me asking if one of our other reporters, Katie Hopkins, would be interested in joining him on a Trump welcome. And I had reached out to Tommy because actually a private donor in North America wanted to connect with him. So you're foolish if you think that because Tommy left the Rebel, we're on bad terms. I don't take credit for Tommy's awesomeness, but I do take credit for turning Tommy into a full-time journalist. That's just how it went down. And the thing that made Tommy and us have a challenge is that Tommy he never had a boss before. He's not good with bosses, especially bosses 2,000 miles away saying, don't do this, don't do that, you'll get in trouble. Well, Tommy's a troublemaker. You don't tell a troublemaker not to get in trouble. And that's just his nature. And I love the year he was with us. He did more than 100 videos. And I hope he gets out of prison. I have, as you know, spoken to the family on several occasions and to his lawyer and offered whatever help we can, either legally or otherwise, and we're just sort of waiting for a request. I don't want to interfere with their strategy. I would have a different strategy. When Tommy was thrown in jail in Canterbury, we moved heaven and earth to get him out. That same day, we got him home 13 hours after he was arrested. We hired the best lawyers in the country. Richard Kovalevsky, QC, for example. We had 2 other lawyers there too. So you're simply wrong. Tommy is a hero to many people precisely because of his character and his courage. And that may make it a challenge for people who are trying to put a corporate enterprise around such a maverick, but that's the nature of, I mean, we're called the Rebel. You know, we're not called the boring mainstreamers. That's why we work with people like Tommy Robinson and Katie Hopkins and, you know, our other rebels, is because they are a little bit prickly. It makes it tough. I mean, I'm sure it would be a lot easier to run a network called The Borings or something, The Boring, but we already got too many of those. Yeah, Tommy chant to open the World Cup. That's what Roger C says. Well, it's funny you mention that because there was a march in Manchester. Now, it was a march to commemorate the anniversary of the horrific terrorist attack in Manchester, literally an attack at, I think it was an Ariana Grande concert. So it was targeting kids. It was targeting music and girls and youth and innocence. Remember, in radical Islam, they don't even believe in music. The Taliban didn't. They would destroy records because, well, as another Muslim extremist, Ayatollah Khomeini, said, there's no humor. There's no jokes in Islam. Of course, there's not anything like music or Ariana Grande pop concerts. So I recall a year ago working with Tommy, and he had a protest against terrorism in Manchester, and it was very well attended. So they had an anniversary march this weekend, and of course it was about the terrorist attack mainly. But let me play for you a clip. And can we play it for like the full minute? It's about a minute long. But I just want you to see it. I want you to see how many people were there, and I want you to see their signs, and listen to this chanting. Here, play the clip. I've been under that same bridge there. It's right in the heart of the city. In fact, I stayed at a hotel right across from it when I went up there in Manchester last time. It's got amazing acoustics. I remember when the police kettled Tommy's rally a year ago. It was actually outrageous. They kettled Tommy's people, but they let Antifa block the way. The police in Manchester is just as bad as the police in London. And the mayor is just as bad too in Manchester. I used to follow him on Twitter. I just got sick of it. I stopped. So yeah, it ain't going away. And I was just reading the comments while we were playing that clip, and I see that the Football Lads Alliance, which is sort of like the United Nations of football clubs. Because football clubs, I mean, in North America, football, hockey, whatever, yeah, there's rivalries, but it's not like it is in the UK. In the UK, they really are, I mean, the phrase soccer hooligan or gang or whatever, it's a little bit like that. I mean, it can get into fisticuffs almost every time. So the fact that there's this national league where all these football clubs, that's what they call soccer over there, come together and put aside their rivalries for a common purpose, including sometimes to support Tommy, that's actually a bit of a miracle. It's a little bit like the United Nations. I was seeing some mention of a rally in London this weekend. I heard of that as well, and I hear that Geert Wilders, the Dutch opposition leader, will be attending. That is, if they don't ban him at the border. Brenda Barber, Ezra, you are my favorite Canadian journalist. The world elite are creating havoc in the world to offer their solution, problem, action, solution. Their solution is to usher in the Antichrist. Well, that's a religious way of phrasing it. But frankly, George Soros and other globalists wouldn't phrase it that differently. They're atheists, so they don't believe in the Antichrist. But some of them are quite diabolical. Hannah, can you get some images of the Soros son, Alex Soros, with the spirit cooking lady? And I don't want to gross out our viewers, but I want to show that anyone who refers to globalists and supranationalists and their machinations, you can look at it through a religious lens, an end times lens. You could look at it through a communist lens. You could look at it sometimes through an Islamist lens. Remember that the idea of the Islamic Caliphate is that there ought not to be any nation states. They're against even Saudi Arabia, even Iran. They believe in a theocratic state where Allah is the boss, with Sharia law, not man's law. So that's not too different from those who would. I know there's an Instagram photo, for example, of Alex Soros with. Remember the spirit cooking lady? It was really super gross that the Podestas and Hillary Clinton were into. let me know if you can't find it. I'll do some Googling myself. Don't tell me those diabolical folks who literally practice symbolism of satanic cults. Like, there's Alex Soros on the left. And you see, and hold that, so that's Alex Soros in the white suit. He's the son of the billionaire George Soros. He's with some model du jour. When you're 5'4", it don't matter if you've got a 6'6" stack of $100 bills, am I right? And you see there's someone behind him lying down. What's that all about? And you see there's some people dressed in white. What's that all about? Put up the next one. I'm sure there's more in this. There's a series from this same get-together. I think Lady Gaga was there. We'll find it. I'm sorry, I'm surprising my team by throwing this obscure thing. Just when you find spirit cooking, when you find the art installations, come back to me, because I know people are saying, Ezra, you're crazy talking about these things. Well, maybe, or maybe that's these folks who have destroyed Christianity, abandoned Judaism if they were Jews, have found something extremely gross to I'm just Googling right now, spirit cooking Lady Gaga. Yeah, and it's the first image that comes up. Why don't you throw some of those up, my friends? Just, I want to close this thought because people might not understand what on earth I'm talking about. Let me know when you have those, because okay, there we go. You see this is the same event? That's Lady Gaga. You know what, actually, why don't you get that off the screen? That's so gross, I can't even look at that without gagging. Google spirit cooking Lady Gaga or spirit cooking and Alex Soros, and you'll see what that lady's talking about. I'm not a follower of the New Testament. I'm a Jew myself. We stop at the end of the Old Testament. I don't think you need to be religious or, for that matter, believe in any conspiracy theory to observe the conspiracy facts, that there is a globalist elite who don't believe that they ought to be bound by the law, certainly not by the law of any state. And in the case of Tommy Robinson, one of the things he is against is open border migration. And it is simply a fact that George Soros and other globalists use open borders migration for various purposes, including overwhelming indigenous democracies by simply displacing them, putting them into crisis, radically altering their demographics. It's not a conspiracy theory, it is the express wishes of the Soroses of the world. I know we went on a bit of a tangent there, but it was a super chat and I thought I'd respond to it. Mouthwash Typhoon, I have no idea what's happening because I just arrived, but have this. Okay, don't know what that means. I'm just reading through some more super chats if I missed them. Someone chipped in 30 rupees from India. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate that. Okay, I got on a bit of a tangent there with George Soros, and I wish I didn't, because I wish I didn't know what spirit cooking was. I learned about it in the late days of the 2016 presidential election when John Podesta's emails were leaked, and it came out that he was invited to a spirit cooking event by an artist. Can you get the spirit cooking artist's photo of her holding up the devil's horns? Get the spirit cooking artist's name, Google it, and there's this grotesque image that sums it all up. She's holding a goat's skull. And people are saying, Ezra, what the hell are you doing right now? I want to show you, when you drive out traditional morality and traditional religion, whether it's Judaism or Christianity, what fills the void, especially for these global elites? Throw up that horrific. That's the spirit cooking leader in New York with a goat skull. And I'm sorry I'm freaking you out. Let's take that down right now. That's the lady who held these spirit cooking, that's what they called these gross things with blood. She threw the parties and invited the Podestas, and she's the one who throws the party that Alex Soros goes to and Lady Gaga goes to. I'm sorry I took this grotesque turn these last 5 minutes. I'm going to stop right now because I'm making myself vomit. But that's a real thing. So when Roseanne Barr is mocked for talking about pedophile rings or other illegalities, well, we know for a fact that there are hundreds of pedophile rings in the United Kingdom. That's what Tommy was protesting against. These rape gangs, they target underage kids as young as aged 11. They target girls as young as 11. And they don't just rape them once, they rape them systematically for years. That's what Tommy was thrown in jail for, reporting outside the trial of 27 men and 2 women accused of systematically raping girls as young as 11. So that's Islamic pedophilia. And when Roseanne and other conspiracy theorists on the right talk about similar grotesqueries in the United States, maybe they are going off on some speculation or some conspiracy theories, but there are very extremely troubling things as well that are right out in the open. I always say you don't need to indulge in conspiracy theories. There are enough conspiracy facts. All right, let's get back to other things besides the grossness of George Soros, his son Alex, and the rest of the crew. I see a super chat from David Anderson. Finally caught you live, Ezra. Keep up the great work. Well, thanks, David. Sorry you tuned in just when I was talking about spirit cooking. I want to show you a police officer. I want to show you a clip of a police officer, and this clip came to my attention from Gerard Batten, who's the new leader of UKIP. I started the show by showing you a clip from Lord Pearson, a UKIP peer. This was tweeted by Gerard Batten, the new head of UKIP, and I like him more and more. I mean, if he's tweeting this and saying, I don't know what's going on here, but I don't like the looks of it, that's my kind of guy. Here, roll that video. This is of the police officer talking to the lady that he had just arrested, and she was protesting why. Do we have that clip handy, Hannah? Yeah? Okay, roll the clip.
So I've just been detained for being a bystander in a city square. I've got off the train. I've got off the train from Middlesbrough to come to a remembrance march in honour of the people that died. I followed the guys down here, right? I'm standing around watching what's going on. I get arrested for doing nothing. I wasn't videoing, I wasn't causing trouble.
You don't have to do anything.
I was just standing there.
You'd let me speak, I will explain what we're doing and why we're doing it, okay?
You've arrested me for nothing.
I've arrested you for failing to provide your details upon request.
What did I have to provide my details for standing around in a square?
We have
I haven't done anything wrong.
And evidence that you are associated with this group. Therefore,
what information and intelligence?
The cameras have been watching you.
What I arrived down the road to a meeting point.
What's happening? Okay.
Right, I arrived down the road on my own. Do you want to see my train ticket?
No, I don't want to
right?
see the train ticket.
I saw these guys. I said, "Where are you going? We're having a walk down there. Can I come with you?" Because the guys that were supposed to meet me off the train didn't meet me. Right. So I walked down here with them because I've seen them before. Right? I've no association with them at all, apart from I've walked down here with
them on camera.
I'm associated.
That's enough for us.
Walking down the street with somebody, having a conversation with somebody, is enough to arrest me.
No.
Is enough to arrest me.
That is enough to issue with a Section 35 power. Okay.
Police brutality.
It's not police brutality.
You've twisted my arm. You've nipped my arm. I wasn't resisting. I wasn't waving my arms around. I didn't have a glass in my hand.
You did have a glass in your hand.
He took the plastic cup off me that I walked down with a lime and soda in it.
I'm not arguing with you.
He took the plastic cup off me. I didn't have a glass in my hand. This is police brutality.
Okay.
It's an abuse of power. All I was doing was standing in the square listening to what was going on when them guys are getting told they're getting a Section 35. You've bullied me. You've bullied me from walking up to me. You've bullied me. Right? You bullied me. You grabbed onto me and you bullied me. No, you grabbed my arm and you bullied me. He took the glass off me before you did that.
I'm not going to waste
right?
your breath anymore.
So you asked me for my name and address, right? And I have done nothing wrong. You have given me a Section 35 for standing in the street.
Can I have your surname?
For standing in the street.
Can I have your surname?
Can you understand why I resist telling you my name and address when I feel, as a citizen, I've done nothing wrong? No, not if you're in the wrong. Are you following your oath? Are you following your oath?
On a minute,
are you
following your oath? Now you're
police brutality.
Yeah, I've watched a lot of movies set in the Second World War. And the phrase that's always used in Hollywood, I don't know if it happened in real life, I think it did, was when the Nazis would accost anyone in the streets, they would say, "Eier Papieren," your papers. Give us your papers. Show your papers. As in, and the Soviets would do that too. And it's the hallmark of a police state where you are presumed to have done something wrong, and you are constantly at the whim of any local policeman to jump through hoops. Show us your papers. Show us your papers. What papers? I'm a free man. My paper? It's called the Constitution. And I couldn't help but think of that. I mean, we heard this lady protesting loudly and at some length, and we heard her side of the story, and now she was recording herself, so perhaps she was tailoring exactly what happened, knowing that her video would go viral. Who knows? Maybe there's another side of the story. But the policeman himself didn't seem to suggest there was. He didn't say she was doing anything threatening or violent or causing a disturbance. In fact, he essentially said, I've got any right I want to pull you in whenever I want. I can do that. I just can. I don't have to answer to you. I can just use this section of this law to whisk you off the streets, and then when I get tired of talking to you, I'm going to grab the cell phone out of your hand. That's how it happened to me. That's how it sounded, excuse me. That's how it came across to me. I don't know what happened to that lady in the end. I haven't made a deep investigation into it. I just saw that video, or a portion of it, tweeted by Gerard Batten of the UKIP. And I thought, how widespread is that? How widespread is it? Because remember when Tommy was arrested 10 days ago, he was standing by himself in the street. He had one female supporter and he had one cameraman with him, but they were silent. He was just talking to himself. If you can bust up a guy just for talking to himself on the street, you can bust up anyone. You can nick them. That's another phrase I learned from Tommy. They're coming to nick you. That means to arrest you. And this is a woman. She sounds sort of early middle age, and she sounds, argumentative or whatnot, but she was deferential. I don't like it. I don't like the direction the UK is going these days. I don't like all the publication bans. I don't like the injunctions banning press coverage. And there's something called a super injunction. It's an injunction over an injunction, as in you're not allowed to talk about this story. That's what happened to Tommy last week. There's an injunction, not allowed to talk about Tommy. But then there's something occasionally they use called a super injunction. So we're going to put an injunction banning you from talking about this, and then we're going to put a super injunction banning you from talking about the ban. So we're going to have a ban that you're not even allowed to say exists. That's actually law in the UK. Look it up. It's called a super injunction. I'm not quite sure how free the United Kingdom is. It's hard for me to believe that this is the country of John Milton and Areopagitica, the great free speech book. It's hard for me to believe this is the country that gave us George Orwell warning us about 1984. They say that you could live your entire life in the United Kingdom without ever coming into contact with a policeman, because the policing was so light and so deferential, and the citizenry was so self-regulating. It was a high-trust society that through centuries had adopted customs to govern themselves. That's not the case anymore, is it? It's the most closed-circuit TV'd country in the West, that's for sure. It probably rivals China, frankly. I was just reading a tweet from Sadiq Khan's police force that says they have 900 policemen on hate crime duty. Do you know how many cops 900 cops are? Just imagine 900 men and women not fighting knife crime or acid attacks, which happens a lot in the UK now. Just surfing YouTube and Twitter and Facebook and going to shut things down. 900. There's 23,000 jihadis that the UK knows are in country, and they're just doing nothing about 23,000. But they got 900 cops they're putting on the hurt feelings beat, eh? I don't know exactly what's happening. We heard the lady's side of the story, and she was saying it for the benefit of the cameras, so she could have been tailoring it, but the officer didn't really object to her factual narrative there. I don't like the way the policing in the UK is going. Everyone used to sort of laugh that the Bobbies didn't even have guns. They still don't in many cases. It's because they were so well respected, they didn't need to. The moral authority and the citizenry was generally well behaved. They were self-regulated. It was such a strong country that way. Unbelievable. I think I've probably missed some super chats. It's 12:44. We're 3/4 done. The time flies. Let me just check. A couple of super chats here. A Swede speaks, spiritual void of the West is filled with Islamization. You're right. What I showed you, that bizarre 5 minutes I spent showing you the spirit cooking craziness in New York, that's extremely rich, fancy people who indulge in some satanic style cult. I'm sorry, that's what that is. And that's not a conspiracy. I showed you the photos of it. But of course, there's only a few of those people, and they like their fancy parties and their supermodels. But the void is indeed being filled by Islam, which is a confident religion, an aggressive, expansionist, evangelical religion, when so much of Christianity is passive or really extinct or going extinct. Islam provides rules, heavy rules, but rules nonetheless. And people, I think, crave rules, and if they don't have rules, they seek boundaries. When you tell men you're not allowed to be male, when you tell men you're not allowed to be men being masculine is toxic, that's unnatural. Islam is the other extreme. It does not call on men to be gentle. It calls on men to be brutal in many ways. And it has a very strict place for women. Put on a burqa, be submissive, but if you do that, you'll be protected by strong men. You can see why it has such a high rate of conversions, especially in a loose society where all other Western religion is being driven from the public square. You can see why so many people convert to Islam in prison. Primpal08 chipped in $5. Love the Rebel live event. Well, thanks very much. I had a lot of fun there too. I thought it was a great get-together. What's the time? It is 12:46 p.m. I think I've covered most of the super chats. Let's go back and just read some regular comment. Oh, I see Mouthwash Typhoon. This is disgusting, and my country is going the same way while the majority of the population have their heads in the sand. Yeah, I think so. Well, I mean, if the mainstream media has a cone of silence on these issues, how are people going to know? Not everybody spends their lunch hour watching a newsy commentary super chat. Most severely normal people don't even watch the news or read a paper. Cave Creature says the island is real. I think that's an allusion to, is that an allusion to the movie called The Island? If it's the one I'm thinking about, I thought that was a great film. Kale262, time for big change. Well, you know, it's interesting. I had the privilege of having lunch with Daniel Pipes at the Middle East Forum the other day. And he told me that he went through the countries of Europe and he talked about the dissident parties on immigration that were really punching through. And we see that in Italy, right? They're getting very tough, talking about deporting 500,000 illegal migrants. That's quite a task. Let's see if they can do 5,000, then 50,000, 500,000. That taxes credulity if it's even feasible, but I like the fact that they're talking that way and they're wildly popular for it. The Alternative for Deutschland, the AfD in Germany, is growing very strongly and quickly. Austria, of course, Viktor Orban's Hungary, very strong. He just won 2/3 of the vote, if I'm not mistaken. Even Geert Wilders, a strong second place. Marine Le Pen came in second in the French elections. Dr. Pipes pointed out that in the United Kingdom, they don't have a dissident anti-immigration party. UKIP toyed with it briefly, but it's UKIP, a lot of the air that's gone out of that balloon. I enjoyed our conversation with Gerard. But he told us that he just saved the, in fact, I think we just released our full interview with Gerard. Maybe we can put the link on this website for those who are interested. I talked to him for about 40 minutes or so. So Dr. Pipe said that in the UK there is no dedicated anti-immigration party. UKIP was not that. That was a secondary issue for UKIP, and now UKIP's sort of been shrunk. But I think if there were a party like that, I think a lot of Brits would coalesce around it. And there's only so many times you can call people racist, sexist, Islamophobic, whatever, blah, blah, blah. When you do so falsely again and again, And it's so false. If you look at the parties, whether it's the Sweden Democrats or Geert Wilders, they absolutely are not bigots. In fact, many people who are concerned about Islam are traditionally leftists. Anne-Marie Waters of For UK or For Britain. She's a lesbian feminist. I don't think I'm telling a secret to say that. She's concerned about Islam for personal reasons as much as political reasons, I think. Pim Fortuyn, the gay activist politician in Holland, was murdered because he was worried about Sharia law encroaching on his rights as a gay Dutchman. Theo van Gogh, who was also murdered. He did the film Submission. He was gay as well. And so I think calling anti-Islamification parties racist and bigoted, I think it loses its effect after a while. I mean, it just becomes a joke almost. I see a few more super chats. Andrew Sr., Ezra, the girl in the van has now to appear in court charged with assaulting a police officer. She did nothing wrong. I saw the full video. Okay, thanks, Andrew. I didn't do a lot of deep research into it. I just saw that video tweeted by Gerard, and I thought it spoke enough for itself to show, but thank you for the tip. Christopher James chipped in $10. Thanks very much. Ali Clark, thoughts on EU copyright law, Article 13 will have huge impact on free speech and independent media. Ali, I just haven't looked at that yet, so I'm afraid I don't have enough information to give you a substantive answer, but thank you for the tip. Kate Preacher, the island is real. Let me check with the team. Have I missed any super chats, or I got them all? No, it looks like I have them all. Okay, it's 12:51. We got 10 more minutes. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take a very short break, and I'm going to play an ad for... did I tell you we did a documentary? I'm sure I mentioned this last week. We went to Iraq last year, and we did a documentary on ISIS and their ethnic cleansing of Christians. I mean, as you know, it's the Holy Land. They were the first Christians there. Iraq is pretty close to, it used to be called Mesopotamia, pretty close to Judea. And they were early converts. They've been practicing Christianity for 1,400 years in some of these towns we visited. We did a movie about how ISIS has a specific campaign to destroy that Christian community. It's called Save the Christians. And it's done. The movie's done. You can get it, order it on DVD if you're old school, or if you prefer video on demand, just go to SaveTheChristians.com. Here's a 1-minute trailer just to remind you what we did.
صراحة صار الضرب الصبح الفجر فاحنا ما قدرنا نطلع يعني.
يعني قالوا تأسلمون يعني يصيرون الإسلام. لا. بشم بابو ألا أول رحم الله.
Yeah, I recommend that if you care about the ethnic cleansing of Christians. You know, it's funny, I was just reading that Pope Francis is convening a meeting with senior oil company CEOs. I understand the boss of ExxonMobil is going, Rex Tillerson's successor. Statoil is going, they have a new name now. I can't remember all of them, I think BP was going. And he was inviting them there to talk about global warming. I don't think the Pope's an expert in global warming. I think global warming is more of a matter for politicians, not for priests. I'm not a Catholic, so I have to be cautious about criticizing. I like to I feel as a Jew I have certain moral authority to criticize Jewish groups. I'm more cautious about criticizing Christian groups. But it would seem to me that the Pope could better spend his time convening world leaders to talk about the ethnic cleansing of Christians at the hands of Muslim extremists, not just in Iraq and Syria, but the Coptic Christians being slowly genocided in Iraq. They used to, of course, in Egypt. Egypt, of course, used to be a Christian majority country. It's now 10% Christian. Need I tell you that Turkey, Istanbul used to be called Constantinople. The largest Christian city in the world, the richest city in the world, the most powerful city in the world. Now it's called Istanbul, and the great Hagia Sophia Mosque used to be a church, and then it was conquered by Muslim jihadists and turned into a mosque. I think that's probably more where the Pope's talents and connections and moral authority can be used, rather than reading some bullet points put together by Al Gore. I think we have enough people talking about global warming, even if the Pope's right, which I don't think he is, on global warming. We have other people handling that. We don't have enough people handling the case of Christians being exterminated. Let me check. It's 12:55. We have 5 minutes left. Team, do I have any super chats that I missed? Nope. Oh, one that just came in. Let me read it. Tommy should be knighted, not jailed, says Tame Thing 1. Well, wouldn't that be the case, eh? It's a prophet is reviled in his own time. Have you ever heard that saying? No one wants to hear a prophet, because a prophet is always warning, the path you're on is not a good path. Repent, you're doing something wrong. No one wants to hear that. Tommy, and I hope he gets out of prison soon, and I hope he stays safe, and I hope he's not deterred from his work. But I am afraid that he will not be properly recognized until after his time. And I don't want to say when it's too late, because we always, to quote another pope, where there's life, there's hope. But I'm afraid that the powers that be would never give him a knighthood. Let's see, we got 4 minutes left. I'm just going to read some more comments, just randomly here, really. Neil D. 46, I think any true Christian will tell you that this Pope will be the destruction of the Catholic Church. Well, I don't think so. I think the Church will endure, but I was just on the weekend talking to a Polish friend about the critical role that Pope John Paul II played in liberating Poland, and indeed all the Eastern Bloc from the Soviet Empire. And that was something only that Pope could do, and he did it by relying on his moral authority and reigniting Christianity in the officially atheist Soviet bloc. I think that the battle we have against radical Islam today is as large as the battle we had with Soviet atheism and communism a generation ago. I wish we had that kind of a fight back. And Pope John Paul, he did it with Reagan and Thatcher, but he was a crucial part, in my view. Oh, I see a super chat. M. Karras, as a Catholic, I feel that Pope Francis may go down as an anti-pope. Latin American church was heavily filtrated by communists in the 20th century. Yeah. And again, I don't want to go too deep into this. I already spent too much time talking about the Antichrist and things today. That's not my turf. But I am worried about it. And I just really wish that there were more champions for these Christians in Arab lands. Ironically, it might be Donald Trump who picks up that mantle. Trump is no pious man. He's pro-life and he's supportive of Christians. It's funny because I think his own personal lifestyle, many Christian voters would say, oh, he's not a Christian conservative. Well, so what? He supports Christians and conservatives in a way that many practicing, more than, George W. Bush would call himself an evangelical Christian, born again. He would. Donald Trump's gone farther than W in supporting Christians. Heidi Wall says, Daniel Pipes opposed Trump for the presidency. Yes, he absolutely did. And I've debated that with him. And I think that Daniel Pipes has, like so many of us, observed the last 500 days of Trump's presidency. And as a conservative, he's found it positive. What I like is a never-Trumper who can say, you know what, I was wrong because of this, and I was glad to be proven wrong. A never-Trumper that I don't have time for would be someone like Bill Kristol, who, despite the objective proof that Donald Trump is is governing as the most conservative president since Reagan, and some would say even more than Reagan, yet continue to nitpick to find reasons to justify their earlier objections. I think it takes some courage to change your mind. When Glenn Beck changed his mind about Donald Trump a couple of weeks ago, I gave him credit for it. I mean, I don't think it was just a marketing ploy. I think Glenn Beck is honest enough to say, yeah, Trump isn't what I feared. Folks, it's 12:59. We do this every day. I usually talk about subjects other than Tommy Robinson, but we're still just in the wake of his arrest, and I think we're still processing that. We'll probably talk about Tommy a little bit in the days ahead, but we will ease other discussions into it because I just don't think we're going to have news about Tommy. There's going to be another rally on Saturday. Geert Wilders is going. There's going to be some news like that. But as far as I know, no legal appeal has been filed. And that I'm disappointed in, but it's not my decision to make. I believe Tommy should fight like hell. His lawyers should fight like hell. They should get the best dream team in the country. We put together a bit of a dream team for him a year ago in Canterbury. It's not my decision to make, so I should hold my tongue. If there's news, we'll give it to you. You'll probably find out about it at the same time we do. We'll talk about Tommy, but we'll talk about other things this week ahead. For those of you who chipped into the Super Chat, thank you. That goes to support our costs here at The Rebel. On behalf of all of us here at Rebel World Headquarters in Toronto, to you at home, keep fighting for freedom.